Welcome back, guys, to TM Ball. I'm with my co-host today, Rich and Mr Hardie. It is myself, Jay. How are you today, Mr Hardie? Well,
I am not too bad. How about you, mate?
I'm not bad, thank you. Rich, how are you today? You well?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, man. Can't complain. Just another cold-ass day.
Nice. Well, we've got the Beast from the East coming. Have you heard about that? H.
I did not know that WWE were returning to their 2015 pay-per-view in Japan, Jay.
Yeah, I love that. Do you know what,
in. Do you know what? I'm coming in straight hot with the, I'd say historical references, even though 6 years doesn't feel that long ago.
Are you kidding me? With all the content they do, it feels like it's almost 15 years ago.
Jesus, that's true.
Anyone? I don't think they do it anymore. I don't really know, even though I am a massive WWE mark. But they used to do a pay-per-view every 2 weeks.
Oh my God, yes, that was terrible.
Yeah, I remember this in like 2011. I remember this being particularly bad. There was like Vengeance, and then in about 2 weeks it was Hell in a Cell or something. It just got insane.
No, that was actually really recent. I think that was like when the second brand split happened. I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember what year ago that was. That could have been no earlier than like 2017, I think. Or 2000.
Yeah. You're right, but it was exactly the same back then as well. But yeah. Well, it's exactly the same, mate. It's just like every 2 weeks, and like we were saying before on another episode with like Hell in the Cell, and they're just running out of ideas, so they're DQing people in Hell in a Cell. I mean, it's crazy. Do
you know what? I mean, for me, I think that match with the Fiend and Seth Rollins, that was for me when I started to properly dipped out of watching WWE, and that's when I don't
blame you at all, man.
No. I mean, it seems like such a cliche thing to say because the reaction was just so terrible across the board. But for me, I was like, yeah, maybe this isn't. I don't need to watch this every week anymore. But I don't know. It's just been a weird time for wrestling.
Yeah, right. Well, funny enough, I was listening to Jim Cornette. I've got a massive mark for him as well. And he was saying that the difference is that in the olden days, they used to have bookers. But when Stephanie obviously graduated, then that's when they started getting bookers from like TV writers and everything. And you can tell the difference. You really can. From someone who's writing on a reality TV show to even 5-10 years ago is crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of opinions about Jim Cornette. We might get into that in a bit, but I think
we might have the same opinions.
By the sound of your reaction when I said when Jay said Jim Cornette, I think we might be on the same page. Yeah,
that he's the greatest.
I just think he's a bit. I don't know. I mean, Rich, you're an American person, but I don't know if you quite get the kind of analogy. But he's sort of like a Piers Morgan of wrestling personality. He will just get mad at anything if he thinks people will watch him be mad at stuff. I don't know. I'm sure he did.
With Jim though, like I said on a podcast before today, the character that you see on screen is so perfect for a character for wrestling, but just his opinions and the things that he says, and he's just not that good of a person.
I don't think he believes a lot of the stuff he says. I mean, maybe
he doesn't.
No, maybe the kind of basis. I'm sure he actually doesn't like AEW, but I've heard him call Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks some of the worst things you could call them.
But you got to think though, like
at the end of the day, it's just wrestling, mate.
Exactly, but he said like in the past, Jim Cornette has been on the record and saying like he's wrestling crazy. That's all he knows. There's nothing in life that he knows more of than wrestling. He probably loves it more than his own family.
Yeah, and as a result, he's gone completely insane. This is what wrestling does to people. If you only know wrestling your entire life, you end up making ridiculous statements about everything. But yeah, I think we've got into a bit of a Cornette sidetrack. But basically, yeah, WWE at the moment, for me, I'm not. I know what's going on, but I won't sit down to watch an episode of Raw or SmackDown like I used to.
I'll be honest with you, Will, and Rich as well, because when we say to each other, let's do a bit of research,
Yeah.
I only watch the highlight on YouTube. That's the only thing I can do. You know, I can't watch 3 hours of Raw. I go on YouTube, put the highlights on for 40, 50 minutes, and then that's me done.
Do you know what? I used to do that. I don't even think I do that anymore. I'll read what's going on an episode
Loads
of
of
Raw or
people do
SmackDown.
that.
Yeah. I'll know what's going on, and I'll kind of read the results and think that sounds shit, and I won't watch it. But I mean, again, I think we'll probably get onto the main topic of it, AEW. But for me, that's completely. It's not to sound too dramatic, but it's made me fall in love with wrestling again. I don't know what your guys' take on it.
I feel like I'm a mixture of all three. I feel like I'm a mixture of all three of those things. Like, if I see something that I know is going to be terrible, I'm going to skip it.
Yeah.
But I'm also that same person that was glued to the TV when the eye for the eye match happened.
Oh my god. Jeez.
Because I was so intrigued on how this was going to happen. Like, I knew it was going to be a massive car accident, but I didn't want to miss it.
It was just such a for me. It was just such, it was such a sudden, unexplained escalation of stakes compared to what wrestling normally is.
Normally, like, you're right, because normally they would just do some crazy stipulation, but it would ultimately end how a pro wrestling match normally ends: pinfall.
You might get a ladder match or a steel cage match, or whatever.
Right.
But imagine what I likened it to was: imagine you're watching an episode of Friends, and they could be talking about whatever. Suddenly, Joey walks into the cafe and he goes, "Guys, we've got to save the president." And suddenly, that's just what the episode of Friends is about. None of the previous episodes have been on anywhere near that level. It was just completely random to go from "I'm gonna beat you in a match," blah blah blah, to "I'm gonna take your eye." And the commentators played, and everyone was just playing it completely straight, going, "Oh well, I hope he doesn't take his eye at Extreme Rules." Like,
of course he will.
I mean, and I can't remember if they actually brought it up, but I watched the Royal Rumble. I don't remember if they mentioned Rey Mysterio's eye. Was he in the match? I can't actually remember.
I know Cliff.
Rey Mysterio was in the Rumble. Now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know if because for the longest time he would have the eye patch over his mask.
Yeah, I don't recall them saying
about it. I don't know if he still has it.
And weirdly, I don't remember them saying, "Oh, here's Seth Rollins, a man who took someone's eye out." You'd probably remember that. They seem to have just moved on so quickly from every storyline they bother to do. I don't get it.
Because it's always on to the next. It's always on to the next story.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm just going to stop you quickly. I mean, do you know how Seth Rollins has a number of names? He has like the Kingslayer, the Beast.
Yeah, he's CrossFit Jesus.
Yeah. Now he's SmackDown Savior. What about the optician? Seth Rollins, the optician, just taking people's eyes. That's all he does.
I think the silence that joke got deserved it. Speaks of
it's
50,000 words. Do you know what? I'm racking my brain now to think if there's been an evil optician in wrestling.
I can think of an evil dentist. Yeah. I can't think of an evil optician.
There's technically two evil dentists. You've got Isaac Yankem from the 90s and then Britt Baker in AEW, both doing the evil dentist. I'm trying to think of other because in the 90s, everyone in WWE was the evil something. There was the evil garbage man, the evil dentist, the evil hockey player, but
the evil repo man.
Yeah, you just don't get that anymore, which I think is a shame. Get some of those talent they've got in NXT and just give them random jobs, but make them evil. That's
what you want. There's a Jungle Boy.
Oh,
there's someone dressed up as a dinosaur.
Yeah,
Lucha Dino. I love him.
I mark dinosaurs. They've got cavemen. It's incredible.
Okay, I did promise Mr. W. Hardie here that we would come and talk about AEW.
Yes, please.
So, right, since we've had a bit of a random start,
yeah,
does it make you? Can you sit through a full episode of AEW, or? I mean, how do you think of their dives? I mean, if you listen to these before, I'm dive obsessed, with a whole catching, do you think it's hokey, or do you think that in time they'll get the indie bit out of them, or is that what makes them?
So in answer to your first part of the question, yes, I do sit through an episode of Dynamite. I don't stay up for it. I'll watch it at my desk Thursday morning. I think people can be a bit too harsh on it in terms of the whole dive thing and the indie-rific aspect of it. Because I think that criticism is fair, but as a product as a whole, AEW is, for me, it's what I like in wrestling. They've got what they managed to do with so many different characters and so many different storylines where everyone kind of interweaves, and they've got multiple storylines going on at the same time with different characters. I think it's a much better written wrestling show than WWE has been in a long time. So I can sort of forgive the slightly indie aspects of the wrestling spots if the product as a whole is keeping me hooked, which it does every week. Like I've not had a sort of weekly WWE habit for ages, but each week I'll watch Dynamite. I'll watch Dark. I don't know if you guys have watched Dark on YouTube.
Oof! Oh man,
you are missing out. There is some gold up in their hills, because
there's a lot of people that I like specifically who wrestle on Dark. Like I love Fuego del Sol. I think he's amazing. He should Dynamite. He's so talented. But I'll watch some people who I know. There's no way in hell I'm watching a 2.5 hour episode of Dark. I'll find and skip through people that I like to watch from AEW. Yeah, I can't do a whole episode.
For me,
whole episode of Dynamite, 100% can do that. No problem. For me,
the major selling point of Dark is Taz and Excalibur on commentary. I almost treat it as a sort of podcast, because you can tell they're having the time of their lives, and they have such a good natural.
I love Taz.
They have such a good chemistry. I never thought I would never put those two together, but you can tell the reins are off a bit, and it's such a much more relaxed.
Yeah, Taz is awesome. He's so funny on Dark. The things that I've heard him say, like just going off script, just him and Excalibur having the time of his life, or just him just cracking jokes, doing Taz things, messing up lines, hitting people's names. It's funny. I get that so much, and I think Taz is such a good person to have for AEW, because he's a dude that can do so many different things, obviously, as we've seen throughout the last year, little over a year now.
He's so versatile, because I think what AEW have also been really good at is hiring people who they're not just going to put on screen, but they're also going to help out behind the scenes as well. Like you think of the experience they've got. Jerry Lynn's a coach. I think Christopher Daniels is like head of talent relations. You've got all these veterans that have so much experience, and they can kind of sort of teach the younger guys. And I think that's.
They freaking got Jim Ross there. I don't know any other personality in the wrestling business that I would rather have on board than Jim Ross. Man, he knows so much. He can do. He has been in every type of position in wrestling, backstage, in front of the camera, you name it. And like he's even though he is up there in his I will say this, and I will be very controversial. Jim Ross is the worst commentator in AEW.
Yeah. Wow, without a doubt.
Really?
Yes, without question. JR is the greatest. In my opinion, JR is the greatest commentator of all time. But he is easily the worst commentator they have in AEW.
And I
easily.
For a while, there's been, for the past, I don't even know, about 10 years, Jim Ross has not been Jim Ross. He stopped being Jim Ross, and I would say, I don't know if I'm being too harsh, I'd say about 2006.
Yeah, because I think that was the time when he unknowingly got drafted to SmackDown, and you could literally see on his face live on Monday Night Raw how dejected
they fucked with him so many times. They'd fired him, they rehired him, they made fun of his Bell's palsy on television, they made fun of his colon surgery on television. He was just the butt of the joke for so many years, and you can hear him just lose his passion, and everything he's done after he's left WWE, you can just hear him not really. He's not him. He's just kind of a parody of Jim Ross, and there are moments.
He's trying so hard. I'll say within the last 6 months of commentary, he has definitely stepped up his game from when the first 6 months of AEW. But you could, like you said, you could tell the passion is gone. It seems like he's going through the motions at times.
I can't remember where I saw it, but someone said listening to Jim Ross on commentary now, or when he was bad, it's like listening to the pre-recorded cutscenes in SmackDown versus Raw video games, where he's reading the lines, and you know it's him.
Oh
But he's just saying it like he's just reading it off a card, and he's just got that complete lack of energy to it. You know, when you think about him at the peak of his energy and passion in 98, 99, and contrast that with, you know, just like the shit you got in the mid 2000s, the early 2010s, he lost a lot of it, and he was the greatest commentator ever for a bit. But everyone pushed him a bit too hard, and he just didn't care as much.
Well, you're obviously from the UK like myself. Can you remember ITV World of Sport?
Oh, so I mean, I assume you're talking about the one that was a few years ago.
Yeah, I was trying to get Rich to watch it because how bad it was, and JR was on that. And
See, I mean, so I don't know. I wasn't sure if you were referring to the one a few years ago with Jim Ross, and I think it was Wade Barrett on commentary as well.
That was definitely not the show I was watching, because if I would have heard that, I would have stuck through it.
I remember they did a one-off New Year's Eve special, and I think Wade Barrett was on the call for that. And then when they did a full series, it wasn't Wade Barrett.
Yeah, that's the one I'm on.
You know, but I also thought you might have been on about the one that my nan would watch when it would be Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, because that was World of Sport.
No, not the good one. No, not the good one. The trash one that you was just referring to.
God, it was bad.
Yeah. I was trying to get Rich to watch it, and he's like, I got through the first 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I got to. You know, switching camera angles more than WWE is amazing.
I couldn't believe it. It was insane.
The thing about that World of Sport revival is that absolutely scared the shit out of WWE. That's why NXT UK exists, because they thought, oh God, we've not got a UK product. This World of Sports thing, ITV is going to come in, and they clearly thought ITV were going to go all in on World of Sport.
Like, is that for real? Is that like one of the main reasons for NXT UK existing?
It's the only reason why it exists, to be honest, Rich. Yeah, it is, because the thing is, though, what happened is all the good things of ITV World of Sport WWE took before. You know, I'm trying to think of an example of who.
Hold on. Is there? Maybe you guys can elaborate for me a little bit, because I remember I watched. There was a span where I did watch NXT UK for a little bit, and forgive me for my brain going dumb at the moment, but I forgot the wrestlers who were wrestling each other, but they were wrestling a match called a British Rounds match. And it was something else somewhere else, but they can't say it due to, I don't know, like they can't promote it due to copyright reasons or whatever. But it was a similar match that a popular UK company did to this, but it was called something else. Do you know what I'm explaining?
Well, they did something. Was it called like the Heritage Cup or something recently? I didn't watch it. I know they did it, but it was like, it was in that style of the British round system, which was like what you'd get on World of Sport in the 70s and 80s with the massive fat blokes and a very young fit Finlay. But no, I mean, NXT UK basically came about because WWE saw what was happening with Progress and ICW and World of Sport and thought, right, we'll have a bit of that. And what they did was they just hired all of those wrestlers, hired all of their backstage people.
Oh, but weren't they all partnered? Weren't they partnered with each other before NXT UK? Because I know they have a relationship. Well, they did have a relationship with Progress and ICW and all that. Was that before or after NXT UK came
the
about?
The timeline's a bit confusing for me. But there was a time when WWE was partnered with a lot of different independent promotions. But you know, looking at the state of the industry now, all of those promotions that WWE had partnered with have gone. You know, they had a partnership with Evolve. They finished. Progress isn't what it used to be, because WWE nicked all their wrestlers. I mean, talk about a partnership. Right. The partnership. I remember we can pull wrestlers from your events if we want to use them. That's not a partnership.
Didn't they have NXT wrestlers go to their shows as well? Didn't they have NXT either US or, you know, obviously UK wrestlers go back to the shows as well, like ICW in Progress?
Them off these independent promotions and lent them back as if they were doing them a favor. it was quite silly. I mean, progress in the UK indie scene really caught on fire in sort of 2015, 2016, and all of that momentum disappeared.
Right. That was the time when, because that was the time when when I honestly got truly exposed to UK wrestling was when WCPW was formed. And that's when I seen people like Zack Sabre Jr., Kip Sabian, Pete Dunne, and then people like Drew McIntyre and I think they had, like I said, they had Kurt Angle. That's where I seen Joe Hendry for the first time.
Names. For a company that was essentially started off the back of a YouTube channel, they ended up putting on some really good shows and getting some really big names involved.
Yeah,
I mean they put on a whole pay-per-view behind Broken Matt Hardy. That's freaking insane. That was the biggest gimmick in the world at that time. And they had a freaking pay-per-view devoted, named after Broken Matt Hardy.
Yeah, I mean, the UK indie scene has really, it's stepped down a lot of pegs since that hype. And it's because all of the talent's disappeared. And they've all been shifted into the WWE/NXT kind of performance center, thrown on the heap, really, with all their other millions of wrestlers that they never use.
Yeah, and then, like I said, I remember watching, after all that, I remember seeing a random, it looked like a pay-per-view, and I was not sure what it was, and it was Progress. And that's when I seen people like Tommaso Ciampa versus Zack Sabre Jr. It was actually Tommaso Ciampa's last independent match before going to NXT. Yeah. And I think also on that show there was... it was British Strong Style versus CKY, I believe that team was.
Yeah, Chris Brooks.
CCK, sorry.
Yeah.
See, Chris Brooks, I think, is a super talented wrestler. I'm glad he's doing a lot of good things right now in Ring of Honor. I swear he was in Ring of Honor. He was just doing that tournament. Wasn't he doing that pure tournament they just had going on?
No, I don't think he's in DDT in Japan. He's been there for a while. Unless we've got our wires crossed. No, Chris Brooks hasn't been in Ring of Honor, I don't think.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I feel like an idiot.
Chris Brooks is an English professional wrestler. He's currently signed to DDT Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, mate.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh, he was born in Tipton. That's only around the corner from here. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? It is weird the amount of different UK regional accents that are signed to WWE. They've got about four different Brummies. It's incredible. So Dave Mastiff is from the Black Country in Birmingham, and then I think all of British Strong Style are from Dudley or somewhere around the West Midlands of the UK, which is insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, I'm literally right now, I'm currently about 20 minutes away from downtown Chicago. So there's been a decent amount of wrestlers coming out of Chicago, and plus the indie scene in the Chicago area is just always, obviously before COVID, was always something going on with any type of independent show and whatnot. And so many good wrestlers as well.
I've got a question for you, Will. I've got two. Now, I'll start off with this one. Chris Jericho in AEW. Would you class that as a success or a failure?
That's tricky. It's tricky because in a success in terms of bringing more eyes to the product, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who will have fallen out of love with wrestling, and they might, and it's such a cliched argument, but they might be flicking through the channels and they see Chris Jericho, who was their favorite when he was on TV back in the day. What's he doing now? What's this AEW all about? And then you'll find the sort of the smaller wrestlers who don't have that name value. So in that essence, I think it's a success because it was a big name signing. Straight off the bat, it gave them a lot of legitimacy. And I still find him really entertaining. I think he's evolved so much. He's evolved his character so much over the years, and he's just kept that going, even in AEW. So for me, it's a success. I'm all for him because he's really good at putting over young talent. and getting people involved in his storylines. You know, think about the Inner Circle. There's loads of people in there who weren't on sort of everyone's radar, but by being associated with him, you know, MJF is a huge name now, and Sammy Guevara is going to be huge as well, and Ortiz and Santana. Even he's made Jack Swagger even slightly interesting again. So yeah, for me, huge success.
Yeah, I mean, the fact he's done something with Jack Hager, I mean, that's amazing. What do you think about the Inner Circle, Rich?
I think the Inner Circle is great for AEW. You need to have that heel faction. They had that right away. The first thing that they did was get a heel faction for Jericho, and like Mr. Hardie said, he has. I don't think there's been a time in AEW that I can remember where whoever Jericho was wrestling, that wrestler was elevated higher than when they were before that. And the main, like, you gotta think, people like you said, you know, MJF is a superstar because of Jericho right now. Sammy Guevara will become the biggest babyface in the company whenever that time will happen, and that's because of Jericho's leadership and on screen, and probably stuff we don't even get a chance to see.
Well, do you think he ruined Orange Cassidy?
I've ruined Orange Cassidy. I fucking love Orange Cassidy.
No,
I think he's fucking incredible. I think they've used him really, really well in AEW. I think putting him with Chuck and Trent, that, again, genius move. I don't know, thinking back, maybe did they do a match where you had to dump someone in a pool of orange juice or something? Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Maybe that was a bit too on the nose.
Yeah.
That was you can imagine Vince McMahon coming up with that sort of thing. Oh, Orange Cassidy. Oh, he must love oranges. It was.
I promise Vince McMahon watched that match, and he was like,
I think maybe that angle was slightly a bit. They didn't quite know what to do with him at that point. But I think what AEW has done well is just let people control their own characters a bit more, because they know what works about their own character. And there's definitely been times where an angle hasn't worked. Like when the Dark Order first showed up, they were naff as all hell. That was shit.
How about to just talk about that? You're literally skipping to the next bit. We'll go on to that now anyway. I like the Ligori character when he first appeared, that whole dominant bit, and then after that it just turned really naff. You know?
Yeah, that's something that that group has evolved so much on stuff like Being the Elite and Dark, because there's so much more time for them to evolve this sort of character. I think that's the kind of development you wouldn't probably get in WWE, because if you debut as shit as the Dark Order did, Vince McMahon's not given that chance to breathe.
Well, you see that with Retribution at the moment. Well, that's
so bad.
I watched the Royal Rumble. I watched the whole show. Did they mention Retribution? Was any of them in the Rumble?
Ali was. He was number 4, and he had to do a 3-on-1 against Edge. Yeah. It was
it's just weird. Like, how would you have a group whose main aim is to take over the company, and then
and they were nowhere to be.
Not
being given the chances, then literally not be given the chances again.
It could have evolved into something good. There's some good talent there. You know, I think, so who's in the group? They've got Mia Yim, Shane Thorne, Brennan Williams. There's some good young talent that I think they're going to be tainted by association with this group, which is a shame.
Yeah,
and they've.
Do you think they'd be a lot better in AEW?
Yeah, but not as this gimmick. I think. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, because I think all four of those wrestlers were doing just fine on NXT, other than maybe like Shane Thorne or someone like that. But Dijakovic was involved with Keith Lee for the majority of his time, and I feel like he was starting to get lost in the shuffle in NXT during that time.
Was Triple H saw Dijak versus Keith Lee at that PWG show that got 5 stars from Meltzer, and he was like, right, well let's hire those lads, and they can just wrestle each other and then do something. They clearly just liked that match enough to hire both of them, without any real plan as to what to do with it. I mean,
that's 100% what happens, isn't it? That is literally 100. They just go, you know what? He's good. What shall we? Do you know what made me think about it? Is when you was talking about the writing so much better, and I just think I don't necessarily think that's true. And then I think, well, look what they did with Matt Hardie. We could talk about him. I mean, he had the biggest, like Rick said earlier, he had one of the biggest gimmicks probably ever in the internet gimmick era. And they just did nothing. They did nothing. You know, Vince didn't get it. And eventually when it come and they did do the broken gimmick, it was kind of dead on arrival because people was waiting too long for them to pull the trigger. And then what AEW's done is they made him relevant again.
What they added sort of another twist, another element to it. What Vince McMahon likes to do is hire people who get successful with a certain gimmick. And then he's like, right, yep, just do that now. You can do that. But the problem was everyone had already seen it. What much more can you do with a guy who just says delete, delete, delete? Oh, is he just going to keep saying it? But he's on WWE now. They hire someone not for the benefit of having them on their show, but to make sure they're not on someone else's show.
Yeah, I mean, I have this ongoing argument with Rich currently, Will, and maybe you can be the tiebreaker with this about Ricochet. Okay. I think he's a bit naff, and Rich think he's godlike.
Godlike, I don't think, but I think if you give Ricochet 20 minutes to work a match, there is few like him, and he's not just a flippy cruiserweight. He can wrestle as he just nobody has. I just think Jay just seen Ricochet on Monday Night Raw and think, oh, this is Ricochet. That is furthest from the truth about Ricochet. He's probably the most athletic wrestler I have personally ever seen in my entire life.
It's tricky because.
How right do you think I am, Will?
That's a question. I'm going to be very diplomatic and say you're both right because Rich. Yeah, because I know.
So British.
I think WWE Ricochet is absolutely just. It's a very one-note character. He is flips. He does flips because that's what Vince McMahon sees in him. I mean. Again, it's like what happened with Dijak and Keith Lee. Vince McMahon saw Will Ospreay wrestle Ricochet and was like, right, I want those lads. And for whatever reason, Will Ospreay's not with the company yet. But he just wants him to do flips, and he doesn't really see anything beyond that character. So he's not really been allowed to have a match beyond just the basic flips that he does. So I mean, at the moment he is naff. So I'm with you there, Jay. But Ricochet in New Japan and Ricochet in Lucha Underground and Ricochet on the Indies, incredible.
Oh, so even Ricochet on NXT, his debut match, he was a part of a 5-star match. I mean, like that's of course it was a 6-way ladder match to determine the first ever North American champion.
Oh, so that was amazing.
Yeah, Ricochet's first match, Ricochet's first move in WWE was a triple jump shooting star press to the floor. What? His first move? Are you kidding me?
Well, he's a good gymnast.
I actually that because I didn't think that was true. But yeah, you're right. That was his first match in WWE. Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean. But at the same time, I hope. What's Will Ospreay doing now?
Japan. Yeah, so he was.
I believe he's New Japan.
He should not leave there. No. He should just not leave.
You know what? He's actually doing pretty good. He's just turned heel, and he's sort of. I don't know if you. How familiar are you with New Japan, Jay?
I like Brock Lesnar. That's about my limit.
Fair enough. So basically, in New Japan, there's basically everyone belongs to a faction, and it's quite a big deal to be the leader of a faction. And basically, Will Ospreay, he's now got his own faction. I've said the word faction about 10 times.
What's it called?
It's called the Empire. because he is British. Very obvious.
Oh,
Yeah,
of
think
course
about
he is.
like
Dog.
think about 19 like the Attitude Era,
Yeah,
like all the
yeah.
factions they were in, but
So
way
so
cooler.
Will Ospreay's got his own faction. I think so.
Okay.
He's got. I think it's only a few people at the moment. So he's got his girlfriend B Priestley, the great O'Khan, who is fucking amazing, and then Jeff Cobb as well, who was I think he was on AEW for a couple of weeks. Yeah, he turned
Jeff
heel.
Cobb is in that group now. Holy
How do
cow.
I know? Who's Jeff Cobb? I know that name. Was he in WCPW
Yes, and
by any chance?
Yeah, he was, and he was also under the
believe
mask as
so.
Matanza in Lucha Underground.
Oh, that's
That
right.
was his first
You're
big
absolutely
thing, yeah,
right.
'cause
I forgot
he's a
all
legit
about
Olympic
that.
wrestler. He's genuinely incredible.
Right. I think WWE were really close on signing him.
I can't imagine they
one
wouldn't
point.
have tried to get him because he's just WWE go after anyone with any little bit of name value at the moment.
It literally reminds me of like Toy Story with like Andy, and he just like they just get everything that's got half a name and just stick him in his toy box, and then it's like I'll play with them later.
He just hires them and
but they
doesn't
never
know what
come
to do
alive.
with them, and then they stagnate for ages.
Yeah.
And then I can't blame wrestlers who want to go to AEW to get an opportunity because it's clearly anything better than WWE. I mean, do you remember Ty Conti in NXT? Yeah.
I do not. I'm sorry. I do remember her very slightly.
No.
But she was not around really long. That I can.
But she's now in
AEW.
AEW,
That she did.
and she's
Right. She's doing really good from what I understand. She had an NWA
Deeb,
title match with was it Serena Deeb, who's there?
And I
the
think that's a
NWA
really good example of
champion right now.
AEW seeing like talent in wrestlers that otherwise would just go stagnant in WWE. So I think it's always a good thing to have another option in the wrestling business. TNA was nearly that for a few years, but on the level of
yes,
being able to jump to another company, good TV exposure, have good matches. This hasn't been a thing since WCW and ECW in the 90s, and it should, in theory, it should make WWE better. But at the moment, it's not quite. We're not quite there in the timeline.
Well, I tell you something though, Will. On a serious note, it is already better. It's so much better since AEW's come. Even little things, like the head of the table of the Roman Reigns gimmick.
I do like that. For me, I've struggled with watching WWE in the Thunderdome. I just can't get my head around it because it's when you call something Thunderdome, it should be incredible. It shouldn't just be a load of video screens with people looking quite bored. I mean, and it's just so sad because you're never going to give that level of enthusiasm sat in your bedroom on Zoom than you would if you're in a stadium with 20,000 other people.
You just, your missus is there. Will you shut up?
People sort of half-heartedly putting their thumbs up and putting their thumbs down like it's a fucking panto. I much preferred it when they had like wrestlers at ringside, when they had NXT talent, because that was at least organic. You had like actual reactions and you could see them enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, that's what NXT is. Yeah, that's what NXT is now. They have like the Thunderdome and wrestlers in there as well. And I don't know. I really don't. I mean, we're talking about, has AEW got anyone like Braun Strowman? Well, I mean, like the good version of him, not what we see now. Just someone who's like really dominant.
Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Wardlow. They've got. There's some good beefy big men in AEW. Like Brian Cage is someone who I've been watching for ages. I don't know if you ever watched his early stuff because he was in PWG for ages. He was tiny, genuinely. Do you know what he looks like now?
Was he?
Google, yeah.
No.
I want to hear you react to Brian Cage now. Google Brian Cage.
Yeah, he's part of Team 10 right now.
This is great content for the listener. We're
Massive.
Google it. The Google podcast.
You Brian Cage. When you say that, right, I just think,
Yeah.
holy shit!
There
so
it
that's
is.
Brian Cage now.
Oh my
He's more
God.
steroid than human.
He swallowed Chris Masters.
And then, so in comparison to that, I don't know if any pictures have showed up, but Google Brian Cage young. Yeah,
I'm just like, wow.
it's yeah. So he is AEW's big boy.
What?
All
What
natural,
is- that
correct?
can't be the same person. That can't be the same person.
It
It
is,
can't
Jay,
be.
because
It
because
can't.
steroids.
It cannot be the same person. Steroids is enough. It looks like he swallowed
Yeah,
a dragon.
he didn't realize you
in
weren't
the
supposed to
first-
eat the steroids. He's just swallowed them whole. But him in AEW
That-
in Team Taz, just incredible.
What title has he got
So
here?
yes, he's got he's got
Oh, he
Taz's,
has the
Taz's old
FTW
belt from
title
ECW.
belt back from.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
You would think, but it's. I feel like if there's anybody who's going to be a Taz, like the next Taz, they got the wrong guy
Good
holding
old
that
Powerhouse
belt.
Hobbs.
It should be Will Hobbs, in my opinion.
I think that's
He's
the feud.
so
I think one of
talented.
them
He's
turns
so
face,
good.
and you get Cage versus Hobbs, because that would be. I mean, Cage
need to
Cage
stop looking
versus
at
Hobbs
these
sounds
photos.
like a fucking Fast and Furious movie, but
Oh, I'm.
Oh.
But who's the baby face in that feud? I can't.
I can see Will Hobbs is
see
so
either
good
one
as
of
a
those
heel
guys being
that I've
babyface.
forgotten how good he was as a babyface. Because when he was a kind of just a generic white. He was a generic white meat
I've
babyface
never
for a while.
Before
But
AEW,
when he
you could give me a.
Yeah, he's so I think he's the next
Really?
breakout babyface in AEW. I think there's money in him.
Can you remember the New Day when they went heel?
Do you know what? For all we've said about Vince's
man.
impatience on this podcast, that's one example of Vince having some patience with a storyline.
I tell you what, I don't
Yeah.
think people realise how bad they was when they debuted. I literally thought this faction is not
Yeah,
going to
it was-
last
it was
more than
bad.
a month.
But that's one of the only few examples I can think of. I don't know if you guys will think of any more, but it's a stable that managed to evolve so much, and you can tell Vince McMahon has so much faith in them now. Yeah,
Well, that's because they draw so much money. It reminds me of when you just said though of people who are really crap faces, or Vince is not very good heels. If you turn that good at awesome heel, you can turn face, but you've got to kind of be like a Steve Austin face, where you're face, but
Yeah.
you're just being a bit of a
you
rogue.
have to
and
keep the same
people
character,
shit. Yeah, and
essentially.
yeah, don't do a Becky Lynch where you start awesome and then just turn into this. Yeah, I'm the man. It's I know you've said that quite a few, and then just turn a bit bland. Just be 100%.
There's too
all
many
the time.
examples of kind of failed heel or face turns where they just become a
100%.
completely different person to who they were. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, the first name I can think of with that was, I would say Randy Orton's first
my God.
babyface turn. I think it was 2004,
He
2005.
should never be a
It was-
face ever,
it was-
ever.
it just was- it
He's
just wasn't the right
so
fit.
bad. No,
Right. It was just the wrong.
No,
he was not ready
I
to be
mean,
world champion
I
at
think,
that
you know
time.
what? I think he was, but definitely not as a baby face.
yeah.
You think he was? You think he was been a good heel champion?
I don't think you can turn Triple H face in 2004. So he was in the wrong place
No.
to have a
No, not a
heel
chance.
run separate to Evolution. Because I think even if you has him as the heel champion within
But
Evolution,
I will say
you're
though,
still going to end up with a storyline where they have to turn him face because Triple H is too dominant. It was
You can't-
I mean, it was such a good launching point for him. But it was only when he kind of turned heel.
Yeah, definitely. But also too, I feel like
facing the Undertaker at WrestleMania 21. That's when he
yes, right. I was just about to say it. That was that led for him having a bad babyface run. That was his next rivalry, I believe, where he went to SmackDown and started like getting the Legend Killer gimmick back to
Stacey
how
Kubler
it was.
had a feud with Hulk Hogan, based around the fact that he wanted to shag Hulk Hogan's daughter.
RKO
Jake Roberts,
RKO Mae Young and Moolah.
Face.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff as a Legend Killer gimmick back in the day.
Also, I think we talked about this earlier with Rey Mysterio's eye, but did they not mention at all Randy Orton's, who's supposed to have no face? Yeah, I mean, not one mention.
I
don't know if they mentioned it briefly, but so 1 week he has no face and he's wearing a mask to hide his burnt, horrible face, and then the next he's just fine.
Yeah.
Just don't. Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Oh, wait, they took the mask off, don't forget, and he was like all burnt and stuff. And I was just thinking, whatever ward he goes to, I want to make sure that I go there I
want whatever he's having.
Exactly. But it's a bit weird with I was explaining this to Rich the other day without going too much back into WWE, but Nikki Cross's gimmick
what is she?
Just weird,
what is she doing?
Just weird. What is just running around like I'm all crazy, and then the next thing she's just a dumbass face.
She was really good in Sanity in NXT.
Rich says.
And again, that's another example of a group that Vince McMahon didn't really have the patience for. And when they came up to the main roster, they just did.
And what a shame!
They did nothing. Didn't they side with Shane McMahon at one point? I remember that.
You mentioned Sanity, how good that group was. I loved watching TNA back in the day, so I automatically knew who Eric Young was. I knew how good that guy is as a talker. He could, what a complete waste in WWE in my opinion. But then, like we mentioned earlier about watching WCPW, Big Damo was their first world champion.
I want to say
wasn't
Joseph
it?
Connors.
I believe
Jay is the official fact checker. Can you Google who was the first WCPW champion?
Google who was the first WCPW heavyweight champion.
I thought it was actually. No, it wasn't Hendry. It was. No, it wasn't. Just talk amongst yourself for a minute, kids, and I'll be with you.
I say Joseph Connors.
I say Big Damo.
Right.
Damo though, what a freaking talent though, man. Watching some of his matches.
I think he's trimmed down a lot, but he had a really good old school wrestling body. When you look at him.
Oh.
Yeah. If you passed him in the street, you'd
slimmed down a lot of weight
that's a wrestler
and whatnot. But then,
who's Damo?
Yeah, that's a dude I'm not trying to be near.
I'm also now Googling it because I'm obsessed. I can't not find out.
But
I can't find the right brand because the only one I've got is date established in 1988, and I'm like, that's not it. But I have got the What Culture Heavyweight Championship.
It was Big Damo.
I don't think
it was Big Damo.
That's it. Yeah.
I think I remember it. Yeah, it was.
I can't remember what sidetrack we've got onto on this now. But Killian Dane. I think he could have done a lot more if they handled Sanity a bit better. Because he was that whole gimmick was really good in NXT, and when it came up to the main roster, because Vince McMahon hadn't
I'm back.
created it.
Sorry about.
Yeah. It's okay. I covered for you quite quickly. You're right. Well,
I mean,
I
it's
think
tricky
you're
because
100% right there,
he
mate.
clearly knew that he had to all those good gimmicks in NXT. He knows he's got to bring them up to the main roster at some point, but he didn't create them. He doesn't understand that character, if that makes sense. Like,
well, because. And it's also about how you make money. I mean, look at like the broken gimmick, because there was a massive thing about that, saying because he made that in like TNA.
Him
Him
and Anthem and Jeremy Borash and all that sort of thing. That was messy.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like he'd rather just not even deal with the stress of that and just start again. Personally, you know. We've got 5 minutes left in the podcast, guys. Is there anything that you really wish to discuss? I mean, who do you think, how's about this? Who do you think was going to be the next high mid card in AEW? Not even the next champion.
Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy is just going to be on the rise. I think between Jungle Boy and Sammy Guevara, I think those two within the next. I think they're AEW's 20 year. They're in their 20-year plan.
Oh yeah. They've got so much good young talent, and not even just. Sorry.
Do you think they'll be there for 20 years? Will? Do you think they'll be there for 20 years? AEW.
Good question. I'd like to think so. Because I mean, how old's Tony Khan? He's got to be in his 30s.
Oh, that doesn't make it different. You know that doesn't make it different.
So yeah, I've just given it. He's 38. I think AEW will be around for a while because I think they've managed to tap into a market of wrestling fans who are disillusioned by WWE. And I think if they keep going how they're going, you know, developing young stars, not leaning on older talent to do everything, but to elevate the younger talent and put them in those storylines and angles that make them into the names they should be. I think, there's no reason why they can't be around for a while. Well, also the fact there's a gigantic billionaire just pumping money into it, and he's just letting his son book it.
Right.
Which is kind of the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
think they're going to be there for 20 years
because like you said, without AEW, I don't think WWE steps up their game, and I feel like with competition brings out the best in everybody. And I really don't think it would be beneficial. Well, obviously it wouldn't be beneficial for AEW if they were to go out of business, but they wouldn't be beneficial for WWE for AEW to go out of business because like I said, competition makes everybody better. I think in time, I don't necessarily think there'll be another Monday Night Wars per se, even though it's on Wednesday. But I feel like with AEW being around, it's only going to be nothing but positives the longer they're around.
Yeah, and on every level, it's always good for there to be another company because you've got wrestlers in WWE who are making so much more money now because WWE is scared of losing them to the competition, so they've offered them these ridiculous contracts.
That's what happened to the Good Brothers.
Yeah, you hear about some of the money they were offering. I can't remember why. I was reading. I think when Rhino finally left for TNA, the amount WWE offered him, it was in like 6 or 7 figures to stay because they were scared he'd go to AEW, and they would have done absolutely zero with him. They just didn't want to lose that value.
Yeah, I think it was $750,000 to stay home.
Yeah,
Rhino was like, "No, I want to wrestle."
So I mean, on the fact that wrestlers should be making good money, I think again AEW is good, and I think it's good for fans to have choice as well. Because if you love wrestling and you'll watch WWE regardless of what it does, even if you watch WWE every week, if you can watch AEW as well, you don't get as bored of WWE, if that makes sense. You don't just have the one show because every wrestling should be like a buffet. You should have a little bit of everything. So if you're just watching WWE, it's not going to do as much for you as getting a more rounded diet, I guess. And that's why I watch New Japan as well, because that's a completely different presentation to WWE. Maybe we'll get an episode where I teach Jay about New Japan. I think I'd quite enjoy that. But
to be honest, you could teach me. You could teach me as well because I'm a very very casual New Japan viewer. Like I know a little bit of what's going on, but I'm mainly a guy who will watch Wrestle Kingdom, and that's pretty much my span of watching for New Japan. But you can definitely give me a good education as well on what's going on in New Japan.
Oh, 100%. I'm very much down for that.
I mean, it's not like I've got enough work doing NXT, AEW.
Oh, and then,
you know,
and then we
we'll
can
just do
review all the
Japan
classic
as well.
pay-per-views week by week.
Yeah, no.
And then-
Do you know what? That is literally something that we will be aiming to do, especially when we get on YouTube. Well, I'd love you to be our resident, a New Japan
that sounds good.
host. That'd be fantastic if you're up for it. So the next episode, hopefully, will be joining us as well. We'll be talking about is it wrong to have Twitch streamers within the company, and if they should be banned or not. Sting in AEW. The next AEW champion, guys. That'll be all in the next episode. But currently, from TM Bull, thank you very much for joining us.
No worries.
Thank you so much,
man.
Richard.
No worries.
I know
it's really, really fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. And I know we're supposed to call you Mr. Hardie, but I gotta call you by your first name. Will, you are a treat, man. I'm so glad you came onto the show and just with your knowledge and your speaking abilities, man. It was so fun to listen to everything you've had to say today.
Oh, well, yeah, I've just had the best time. We've been recorded for nearly an hour now, and it's fucking flown by. So, cheers for having me on. Can't wait to be back on.
The sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much, guys. And there was a peer pressure from Richard to Will. We'll catch you next time, guys. Thank you very much for joining TNM Ball. Take care.
Woo, woo, woo.